I think it'd be remiss of me not to start by just quickly acknowledging that today is actually University Mental Health Awareness Day. University is a really wonderful rite of passage in life, a time to work out who you are and to grow. And I know many students missed that opportunity during COVID. And now more than ever, I think it's really important that we acknowledge, that we support, and we really call out the individual mental health support frameworks that we have in our universities. Obviously, it's incredibly important not only to make sure that students are able to complete their courses, but also I think it gives a better level of student, a better level of graduate, and a better level of adult leaving universities, more resilient and more ready to take on the world. So just for today, with University Mental Health Awareness Day, please make sure you have some conversations over the breaks about that. For those who I haven't met, g'day, I'm Nick. Probably thinking, great, another Nick from Australia at a university conference. Sorry, Mr. Gilbert, but there's two of us now. I'm a nerd at heart. I started my working career working for Apple, the very beige and uncool Apple of the 90s, unfortunately. Moving into media and running online publishing portfolios across Australia and New Zealand. I spent some time in Australia working with a group of 8 universities around commercialisation of research, which was fascinating, before taking on the role of Chief Digital Officer with the South Australian Government. And after being a customer of Squiz for the best part of 6 years, I moved my family mid-pandemic to the UK, literally 3 days before Boris locked everyone down for Christmas. Wise move, right? In doing so, though, I've taken on the role of MD and lead a talented bunch of digital specialists transforming the online experiences for students in universities, about 100 of them across the UK. For those who don't know, very quickly, the Squiz Digital Experience Platform is the only truly composable DXP for HE. We've been recognised in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for the last 13 years and called out as the only one that truly focuses on higher education. Our functionality and roadmap are very focused to the challenges that you're facing. Content, search, security, personalisation, integration, analytics, and accessibility too. All perfect for building really great experiences in low-code, no-code environments for higher education teams. And I know for many of you in the conversations that we've been having, really have the challenge around a spaghetti western of legacy systems. Inconsistent branding, fragmentation that weakens that digital experience. If you're thinking multiple logins, no single point of entry for students. There's never been more focus on the website for universities either, especially with everything going on in our industry, with government, international recruitment, caps. There's a huge reliance on the website, not just to be a revenue generating tool where more students are being recruited, but still authentically tell the stories of your universities, whether that's to prospective, current, or alumni students. And to be honest, that can be a really tough job, whether it's content or it's technology. So if above all sounds familiar, you're really going to enjoy the next 30 minutes or so of conversation. Linnea Williams is on the stage, and Linnea is the Director of Communications Technology for Stanford University. Linnea is going to share some of the experiences that Squiz and Stanford have been going through over the last 12 months, working together about creating a consistent and engaging enterprise digital communication strategy for Stanford. And whilst I make my way over to the stage, I'd very quickly just like to bring up a poll. So the poll will come onto the stage now. If you can pull out your app for the conference and have a look at this, really focused on the challenges that you're facing when it comes to digital transformation. So I'll make my way over there, and whilst that's happening, fill in an answer on the poll. Some really interesting results coming through there, especially around that challenge of legacy technology, which I think we're definitely going to be touching on this morning. So we'll let that continue through, and we'll jump straight back into the presentation. First of all, Linnea.
Yes.
welcome to the UK. Welcome to the UCISA conference. We've definitely turned the weather on for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I believe they call this a Scottish summer, so you're enjoying the best of it at the moment.
Feels like a California winter.
Look, we're thrilled to have you here, and for me, I think we've worked closely together, but to have you here with your expertise and your energy in person, I think is really great. Obviously, there's a lot of techies in the room, and your background's in the ones and zeros too. So do you want to give us a little rundown about who you are?
Sure, yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for allowing me to crash your party. So my name's Linnea Williams. I have been with Stanford for a little over a decade, although I was an undergraduate there many, many years ago. And my career started in this industry, started with a bizarre opportunity to hide out from the global recession with a program at Stanford called the Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics. My background was in music. These guys were doing sound synthesis and all kinds of really interesting stuff with using laptops to make orchestras and playing in that space. And they needed someone who was a generalist just to help make the place run. And so I started with taking apart computers and installing stage lighting. And then eventually someone said, we need a new website. Can you help us? We're interested in this technology called Drupal. And you may know that's not how it's pronounced. It's Drupal, not Drupal, like RuPaul, the drag race. And so I built that site. It's still there. It was a real crash course. They wanted to have all kinds of stuff in it, a job board, booking for supplies, all kinds of things. And hosted in a basement where when it went down, we would flip the switch and then turn it back on. And that kind of thing happens a lot at Stanford because there's a lot of flexibility. People can do the things that they like. So that was where I started. From there, I went into consulting, and I ran a small business for a couple of years doing design and development. And then I was recruited into the first team at Stanford to try to centralize web development. So as a result of the global recession, we realized that every single unit on campus was hiring an external vendor to build a website. And that there was a real cost savings that was possible as a result of that. So that team, Stanford Web Services, is still there. I was the 7th employee, the first project manager. I ended up managing their project management office for a while, and then transitioning out of that into a leader in digital transformation for the alumni and donor space, which was a 4-year project. I'm happy to talk about that. That was a massive undertaking. I was the last 4 years of a 10-year project to replace the entire alumni and donor technology stack. And then about 10 months ago, I was invited to the university communications team. And that's where I sit now. So I'm not in central IT. I'm really there to be a person who has IT expertise and can help to connect the vision of that team to the technology that will allow it to come to fruition.
Fantastic. Stanford as a university, I mean, it's a name we all know, and clearly synonymous with really quality research and innovative practices. But maybe you can crack the hood a little bit more on actually what it is like to be working in Stanford. You know, does the kind of proof match to the pudding? And for those who maybe aren't aware, can we talk very quickly about what the higher education industry is like inside the US?
Yeah, absolutely. Stanford is a wonderful place to work. I mean, that absolutely is the case. My colleagues are deeply motivated. They're fun to work with. They're smart. They come from all kinds of diverse backgrounds. You know, people who've gone to Harvard and gotten film degrees and then thought, what am I going to do with this? Like me, and then ended up in IT. And the benefits are good. It's beautiful. It's many things that you might imagine. You get to walk underneath palm trees all day long. For the US, it's a very old institution. For you, maybe not so much. Founded 1891, and very distributed. So I think the longer an institution is around, the more legacy structures you inherit over time. And we have a lot of individual schools, individual organizations that have an enormous amount of leeway. And they also get funding from lots of different places. So it's not necessarily a top-down funding model. Maybe some of it comes that way. Maybe some of it's coming from grants. Maybe some of it is coming from corporate partnerships. And that means that it's not easy to have a top-down directive because people can largely do what they like. It's also, but I mean, that also allows for innovation, right? So that's the trade-off that you get with that, is that when an organization has a lot of flexibility, then they can have a lot of innovation. In terms of IT, really the only things that are centralized are those major enterprise software pieces: finance, email, calendaring, the biggies. Not digital yet, but we're finding that we're moving in that direction due to legal issues, accessibility issues, and reputational issues, which I'll talk a little bit about. So a little story just around this this distributed nature of the organization. When I first became a project manager, I got interested in Agile. This was about a decade ago, and I got trained in Scrum, and I was standing it up in my team, and so I went to a Bay Area conference, a meetup about Agile, and I was talking about having a democratic team and the challenges of keeping them to a scope that was actually achievable, because they were always overcommitting, because they were so committed to their work, and also the challenges of establishing a business value when you don't have a clear conversion point, particularly for something like an academic department website. It was really more, we would have faculty say, I just want the other professor at Harvard to be jealous. And I'm like, okay, that's not a super measurable KPI. So I was talking to these folks, and they said, well, what I really want to know is, what's the process of rolling out Agile at Stanford? And I thought to myself, well, there isn't really a Stanford in that way. There's not like a central project management office for all project managers that's designating how we're going to do these things. I'm just working on my own little team over here doing my thing. So I think that's one of my major takeaways for you all, is that I know that you have these same challenges, that there isn't one Stanford. And I'm happy to talk about higher ed broadly in the US. It's interesting when you talk about the challenges that you have. We have slightly different ones. So due to political polarization, due to the cost of education and the student loan crisis, the student debt crisis, really there's this crisis of confidence around higher education in general. So you'll see articles in the New York Times saying things like, essentially, what's the point of higher education? Are we sure we should still be doing this? And that has cascading effects, because how people vote changes how the government funds our research, changes how our organization can work, and how effective we can be in trying to bring our mission to fruition. So I think we as Stanford really know that we are one of the leading institutions in the United States, and that we have it on our shoulders to help try to turn that, and through communications is one of the ways that we can do that, maybe one of the primary ways.
It must be fascinating living under the perception versus probably what is sometimes the reality of maybe not everything is rolled out gold standard style, but actually it's a lot of the problems that we're all facing to some level.
It's always reassuring coming to these sources.
Therapeutic almost.
Hello, I see you.
Linnea, I love this concept of one Stanford, right? Universities are amazing, diverse, beautiful organisations, schools, faculties, research arms, you name it. But quite often that's a complexity that people really don't want to deal with or dissect. Definitely students, they want a single university front, they want that single face.
Yeah.
And I can only assume that unifying that only helps from a brand perspective and the kind of reach and gravitas. It's how we've come to work together, obviously, on trying to unify the brand and communications. But do you want to maybe talk a little bit about this one Stanford approach and what the catalyst for it was?
Yeah, so this really came out of COVID for us. That was such a squeeze point, I think, for so much in our society, and so much change came out of it. So in the midst of COVID, we were having a lot of crossed wires. We were having our HR department communicating one thing, our environmental health and safety department communicating one thing about lab protocols. You might have your individual department communicating things about how you should be showing up to classes. our student services organization, and all of this is coming through email, just a flood of email, and not necessarily everybody getting the same message every time. And I think I felt this from the government. I think we all kind of felt this pinch. And out of that came this directive that we really need to have a single source of truth for all of our messaging. And what we decided to do is try to take all of these news sources on campus and bring them into one place. So initially that happened in a manual way, and the project that we've been doing recently has been working to automate that and build tools to make it easier for our team, because we did find that there was a lot of overhead. And so, for example, you might turn on a new announcements feature on your site and then go, I just don't have the capacity to fill this with content, and then turn it off. And that's not what we want to do. We want to make sure we're getting the right information to people. So really this started as a risk management undertaking, and in my experience, what gets funded is risk. So if we're talking about the challenges of funding, which I saw as one of the issues on the board, for us, that was the major catalyst, and framing something that's innovative as risk management is the only way that I've successfully managed to get things really implemented. Secondarily, the reputation piece. So that's the benefit, the kind of the add-on that comes from this. We talked about the challenges that we have in the US, and what we know is that we've done polling, we've done some projects to try to post things on social media, poll afterwards, understand what kind of messages really resonate. And we're in a position now to provide a platform where we can make sure the most important messages get elevated and that they're delivered in the most consistent ways possible, because we know that all of our institutions have meaningful things that they need to say, but maybe not every single group has the resources to deliver them in the nicest way possible. So we want to make sure that we're able to elevate our messages and deliver them in a central place. And also, this benefits us because we can make sure that we're able to connect to the national media through that platform. So we're always trying to get stories of research and the benefits of the universities into our national media conversation. The camera is always pointed at Stanford, and it's so easy to get into a reputational problem. And this happens on a weekly basis, where all of a sudden we have a national media story because one student did one thing of note. And so any amount that we can be proactive and have a positive message that hits first really benefits the institution. And I talked a little bit about this last one, reach for the units. So we have a lot of diversity of delivery. And not necessarily because people don't want to do better, but maybe you're just on an old site and you're going into a redesign. So for example, our School of Medicine is in that position right now. They have the resources to have a gorgeous site. They're going into a redesign right now, but the current presentation is on the older side. And the messages that they have to tell are so impactful that for us to be able to pull that content in and represent it in a way that really resonates is super valuable to the institution. And then we're able to overlay things like a dark mode experience for people who prefer to read that way, and personalization, and all of these nice features that any given school or unit may not be able to. So that allows us to amplify the message of these units. And the last thing I'll say about this is, I think 5-10 years ago, we were really trying to use our sites to get people into social media. And really, our strategy now is not to do that. We're not putting social media logos on here. We're not doing any of that. I think the challenges of Twitter and X have just kind of slowed the paces on all of that. So now our goal is to use those as funnels into our system rather than the other way around. So we're repointing the arrow and saying, we're going to deliver you a fabulous experience with recommendations and personalization. Let's not have social media be the thing that's doing that exclusively.
I mean, Linnea, this sounds like a really no-brainer approach as far as ways to mitigate risk and obviously to get the message in a really powerful way through to those people who need it. I was speaking with Mark, who leads change at Glasgow University yesterday, and we were talking about the fact that technology projects, even if the technology is right, even if the strategy or the approach is on point, people broadly are the great unknown, right? And then what leads from that is obviously organisational change management, and that the best projects are sometimes at huge risk purely because of the way that we connect with our people, be that our users, be that the staff within the university. I've been really impressed by the approach that Stanford takes to organisational change management. Do you want to talk a little bit about your beliefs with OCM and then maybe how Stanford's been working with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember the first time we talked about this, I said, people think that change management is training and emailing, but really what it is relationships and individuals. And in my experience, particularly in organizations like this, top-down directives they aren't enough. They're important, they're the catalyst, they're the first piece, they're the keystone. But beyond that, we have to be really boots on the ground, as we say. I don't know if you have that saying, but we're boots on the ground with our change management. And we have this phrase, relationships are the coin of the land. And gosh, there's another one that's really good. Let's see if I can pull it up in 2 seconds. Culture eats change. Culture eats strategy. Yep. Yeah, culture eats strategy. So the way we approached this, the first thing we did after we really had this vision and clear vision that we wanted to do was bring in a group of consultants to actually run a series of focus groups with our own internal stakeholders. So we sat down with all of these folks. We did 2 or 3 sessions, I can't remember at this point, and asked them, what are the challenges that you're facing in this distributed communications environment? Is your message able to be heard? What can we do to make this better for you? So we didn't even start with what we were trying to achieve. We knew where we wanted to go, but we listened first. And then that helped us understand what piece of what we're trying to do is going to really resonate, so that we can then tell that story in a way that people are going to go, yes, you heard me, and that's what I want to do. And I had this experience previously. In my other role, we had designed this beautiful, reusable academic department website template that had everything that everybody ever had on an academic website: people, news, events, courses, publications, details about research, contact. It was like dialed in. And I was so excited when we designed it and we put together this series of workshops, and we thought to ourselves, we have cracked the academic department website. We're gonna make these things in 12 weeks apiece. We're geniuses. And we sat down with the Department of Sociology, our first client in this new process, and were immediately derailed because what they wanted to do was tell us everything that they wanted. And I was pretty sure I knew what they wanted because I had looked at 60 different academic websites, and that didn't matter. People want to be heard. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so to me, this change has to always start with listening, and that was just that initial lesson, and that was so humbling. And so we turned it around, and then our first session was always, tell me what you want with your website. I have the perfect thing for you. This is just such an incredible coincidence. So that was really effective for us. So back to this project, in doing this, these change management focus groups, the other thing that we learned was who were our supporters and who were our detractors. And that helped us to really understand who we should have in our MVP, who we should be partnering with first, who's gonna be tolerant to learning, and who's gonna be asking us how many people have bought in when we sit down with them first. And so we were able to sort order our integrations by how successful we thought they would be sort of straight out of the gate. And that way, when I went to the big school that tends to be a little bit more suspicious, I could say, well, we already have the School of Education, the School of Sustainability, the School of Engineering, and the Graduate School of Business, and the School of Medicine on board with this project. You should join us. And if I had started with them, they would have said, well, I don't want to be the first group involved in this. So that was really helpful for us too. The last thing I'll say about this is it really benefits to speak to people in their own language. And I know that this you're all senior leaders, you know that this is the right thing to do. I think it's easy to accidentally not do it. So when we were talking about the API integrations that we wanted to put in place where we're pushing news content into our system, we had a schematic that had the exact number of values that we would be pulling from them, and the push from here, and all of this stuff. And when we were talking to tech teams, that worked great. But obviously when we're talking to the communicators, which is the other side of this, it didn't make sense to use that at all. And someone said to me, well, how do APIs even work? And at one point, I ended up just doing a little puppet show where I said, well, it's how computers talk to each other. I'm your website, and I'm the new news website. I want to give you a story. Oh, great, I want to have that story. Can I have more details about it? Sure, let me send those your way. All right, awesome, nom, 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 nom. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, a spark. I understand what we're doing here. Now I can get on board with how this project is going to go. So that was really effective, and I think silliness too can help. Levity always helps.
We need Elmo and Cookie Monster on standby again.
I love my content.
Linnea, I mentioned earlier that I worked for Apple, and one of the things that was always drilled into us there, but you don't have to have worked there to understand this, is how important experience is for that organisation. And you know, I think a lot of us here would have used the term STEM before: science, technology, engineering, maths. I really prefer the alternate acronym, which is STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the reason why Apple have people, you know, spending £1,400 on a phone and lining up at 4 a.m. to get a piece of technology. You don't see those same lines, say, for Dell or companies like that.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about how art is really important in the projects that we've been working on and how Stanford delivers?
Yeah, we have a real challenge at Stanford because our faculty and students hold us to a very high bar. And anytime something is delivered that isn't exquisite, you hear this, but we're Stanford. Can't we do better than this? And sitting right in the middle of Silicon Valley only magnifies that challenge. And in my prior role, I was talking about how we were rebuilding all of the donor and alumni systems. And this started with all of the internal systems, so CRM, gift processing, a whole bunch of things. And when I joined that project, there weren't any user experience people, there weren't any designers, there weren't any digital thinkers on the project. And I sat down with my leadership and I said, you know, the things that we're building right now, we're paying people to use. And so if they're a little clunky, that's okay. But we aren't paying people to use our digital products. And so if they aren't polished and exquisite, people are gonna bail. They're not gonna stay there, they're not going to use them. And that was one of the ways that I was able to influence getting a little bit of research funding so that we could say, all right, well, let's do some user research to understand how these things work. Let's make sure that we have a dedicated design team that are polishing all of the pieces that we're putting together. And that was a real transition, thanks. That was a real transition in that project. So I talked already a little bit about this. Having a central site, this enterprise level news site, we can add more features, we can deliver something that's better than we can at any distributed unit. And it's really important for us to pair curation with our automation. So any automation in a system like this, we need to make sure that there's a layer in there where our editorial staff can say yes, no, and get things exactly how they want them. So we actually have curation at multiple layers in this system, one at the school and unit level, what we call the level 2 orgs, and then again at the university communications level. We do have a fully automated side of this, which is our search index. So if you want to see everything, you can go into the search index, but the site itself is heavily curated. And then the last thing I'll say on this is that digital products are gardens. So I think sometimes we think about this as like an edifice. I stand the thing up, but it really needs to be taken care of, weeded, pruned, loved, and that means that the tool needs to be something that is usable as well. So it needs to be great for our external staff, but it needs to truly meet the needs of our internal staff as well.
I have that thought of having digital estates as gardens, not what probably jungles, like a lot of us probably have to some level,
I mean,
right?
we do
a little
have,
more curated.
we've talked about this, we do have at least 250 to 300,000 websites on campus that we're working through as a result of some accessibility audits. But at least we can deliver that single point that is trusted.
Yep,
Yeah.
indeed. Something that I'm sure a lot of organisations are talking about, and there's no doubt conversations going on here as well, is the organisational structure of universities, both now and into the future. And you see there's the traditional model of IT shop and marketing shop. They kind of sometimes, play nicely, but really not on the same canoe. And you see a lot more of these innovative universities now that are understanding that somewhere between technology and marketing communications is experience, is the need for a chief digital officer, is the need for a head of student experience, or all of these kind of roles. Let's talk a little bit quickly. I mean, your role in itself, Director of Communications Technology, they're both in there, and that's probably not by mistake. Do you want to talk a little bit about the technology and marketing blending together at Stanford?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't do comms without tech. That's just how it is now. We're not sending letters. We're not making flyers. We're not hanging flags. I mean, we're doing a bit of that, but this really is the core of what we're doing these days. And so I'm actually in a team called Digital Strategy that has people who do channel communication, what goes on social media, what goes on the website, what goes in the email. And my job is to empower them. So I'm managing our Marketo stack, I'm managing our websites. And when we came together, my team was actually called Web Tech, and we realized that's just absolutely not the case anymore. We're doing SaaS platform management. We're doing all kinds of things. We're building integrations from our user base into our Marketo stack. And to me, the thing that is really critical is having that strong vision from our business partners so that I can come in and say, I can absolutely make that happen for you. So my team's mission statement is, communications technology delivers tools UComm requires to meet its strategic goals. That's university communications. And there's more that comes after that, but I really want to make sure that we are the nexus in that strategic goal piece. And to me, that means that I need to have staff that I'm hiring for problem solving, for creativity, and for curiosity. I have a developer on my team who says, if I know what I'm doing, I'm behind the times. And she's been in the business for 40 years. So this is such a moving target that I think it's really helpful to make sure that we're bringing in those right people, which you all were talking about, the challenges in that space. I know we're focused on cybersecurity for you all, but we have a program at Stanford called Year Up, where we bring in folks who would otherwise never be in professional careers because they just don't have access to that. And they get a crash course, and then they get a 6-month internship, and then we can convert them into full staff. And it's made a big difference in diversity and recruiting in our organization. So I applaud you for that. I already talked about this, the shifting industry. So we're not web anymore. Everybody on campus who attends the web leads meeting is managing a CRM or managing an event system or doing all kinds of things. And so I think we need to get comfortable with knowing that we are going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay.
I think that, and you've mentioned this to me previously, and I think it's a real statement that as IT leaders we need to keep in our mind. Just because it works doesn't mean that it's working.
Right? Yeah. And also, we talked about this, that we think of our creative people as having the crayons and we're like standing up systems, but what we're actually making is the coloring book. So we still have to be doing creative work and enabling them to make beautiful things for us.
There's been some really wonderful nuggets that you've kind of spoke on and touched on, Linnea. If only we had a slide to summarise it.
Oh my goodness.
Like we prepared. Do you want to really quickly give us some key takeaways that we can take away from the kind of transformations that Stanford is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Voila. Risk is what gets funded. I had a colleague who used to say, but what about the gee whiz? Gee whiz doesn't get funded. You got to add the gee whiz. Change starts with the individual. It has to be awesome or people will not use it. And your team is everything in this. So make sure that we're loving and investing in our people.
Nice. Linnea, thank you for making the trip out to the UK. Some
pleasure.
really great things you've spoken about this morning. The journey we've been on is incredible, and we've really enjoyed working with you as well. I know you'll be on our stand today if people want to have a little bit of a conversation. And equally, we've just launched our Trends 2024 report, which has a lot of the things that you should be thinking about. It's agnostic in technology, but talks about where we should be thinking as far as digital experiences. And I know there's some of the frameworks and tools that we've obviously been using with Stanford as well in there. So if you'd like a copy of that, please drop by and pick up a copy from Stand 61, right next to Microsoft. But if you can join me in thanking Linnea Williams from Stanford coming out today.
Nick, Linnea, thank you so much. And I think that reference to the number of separate websites that you're trying to tackle, I think it's just put into
Small
scale.
connections.
That's just, unbelievable scale of a challenge. So we can open up for a couple of questions. So the mics are roving around the room, so I'll just keep an eye out for any hands going up. If I can see any. Oh, yes, we've got someone just over there towards the back. Elaine's heading with the mic. If you can just say who you are and institution, that'd be great.
Yep, my name's Mary Hill. I'm from Sheffield Hallam University. I'm interested in something very, very specific that you said, which was switching that arrow around from your pages pointing to social media, and then switching it to social media pointing to your site. So a lot of the pointing to social media is so that it enables a dialogue and engagement to happen. So are you providing the means of people being able to have that dialogue within your site?
We're not. We don't have commenting and moderation or anything like that. So that will happen in social media. And what we've done is, you know, in the old days we had this share to social media button, and then it would copy the thing and you could go immediately into the app. What we've decided to do is majorly simplify and just have a share button that copies the link. Because that's all people really need. They can paste a link, and the social media is going to determine how it's going to be displayed anyways. So we decided to bring that down quite a bit. We do still have a social media team that's posting things and moderating them and doing all of that work as well, which is a huge part of our reputation management work, because that is where misinformation takes off, as we know. So perhaps it's a little bit of an overstatement that we're trying to step back from social media, but it's more about when we get someone into a story, we want to say, you should hang out. Here's another thing that we can recommend to you, and not have social media be the one doing that for us.
Right, I think there's a big part there in where the personalisation happens, and obviously there's been a huge amount going on with third-party cookies, how you can kind of drive personalisation from the outer world into your site. And that owned content, that owned ability to really curate the content through personalisation is a very big thing. And I think to have that on your site and give people, like you say, surprise and delight them with one story, the more you know, the more content they're going to get that's surfacing from the broader Stanford, to make it feel relevant, to be their one Stanford to themselves too, right?
Yeah, and we are layering on two types of personalization. So one is by audience. You can self-select as a student or as a faculty staff member, and then that will be something that stays with you as long as you don't clear your cookies. But we're also enabling user journey-based tracking. So if you are really interested in a particular type of story, we'll also try to bubble that up for you. So relevance to your role and also relevance to you as an individual.
Thank you. I think we've probably got time for one more question, so we don't eat too much into the refreshment break. Is there anyone else with, yes, over here, thanks.
Hello, I'm Alex Carter from the University of Edinburgh. You talked about manual content review at multiple levels. How do you make that work effectively with areas where there aren't dedicated comms staff who are able to support that?
Yeah, I think that's actually been part of the strategy here, is that we want to make sure that we are working with the dedicated comms staff or whoever is assigned to that type of responsibility, but make it as easy as possible. So what we've done is we've gone into their local CMSs and said, let's add a little toggle that says, send this to University Communications. So when you write a story that you think is broadly applicable, click send. And that's all you really have to do. And then it comes to us, and we have a queue of stories, and we can say, accept, decline. And when we decline, we can make a comment and say, here's why this story we're not certain is relevant. Maybe it's that we had something similar already recently. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible, so whoever is publishing is in a position to be able to do that work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And I think the other part of that is the fact that we are in distributed organisations. The thought of having one content management system or one of any systems is a bit of a jaded perception, and having a digital experience platform that is composable, that can say, actually, you can have 10 different CMSs. We'll be the tablecloth that goes over the top that keeps everything consistent and clean, but keep your existing tech, because we said legacy technology is a big challenge. The appetite to go and transform or change all of those in one go, I don't think anyone has for big bang projects anymore.
Yeah, and even if we tried to tackle the top level school sites, we're already in, I think, 4 or 5 different technologies, and there's no appetite in those organizations to change what they're in. We're not going to get the School of Medicine off of AEM, we're not going to get the law school off of WordPress, and our athletics department is so powerful and wealthy, we're not touching that either. So we can just say, hey, give me your content. We'll do an API push, we'll do an API call, and we'll distribute that for you. The biggest other piece here is the change management piece with the comms staff. So we're going to be fully presenting their story. We used to only link off to stories. Now we're going to present their story in full, which allows us to control that experience a little bit more. And that was a major change, not a technology change, but also required change management with that staff. So it's that strategy pairing.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking once again Linnea and Nick.